The 5 cards for the orange belt are to do with restaurants still, to do with eating and drinking. And the first one is eat. Now, I read some different explanations of this one, and I went for the one that I could see easiest in the cards, rather than the one I thought was perhaps most historically accurate. So, it has a bowl of rice with the lid on top, and a spoon going across the bottom. Okay? Now, to me, that was quite easy to see, especially if you imagine some Chinese and Japanese food does have a lid on still, so that was easiest for me to see. The second one was drink. Now, it used to be, half of it used to be a cup with a lid on it, but that cup with the lid on it has turned into eat instead. And so now it's a little bit harder to understand as drink. And it's the second half is of a mango drinking as such. Okay. The third one. So we milk. Oh, so we're talking about drinking, you see. The third one is rice. And again, there were different interpretations of this character that I read as I did my research. My favourite was that it's a plant and it's with little dots around it to represent the dots of rice. Another explanation I heard, which also makes sense, was that it was a bundle of rice tied together in the middle, which, if you've ever picked rice, you'll know is still the way they do it in Japan. At least the small corners, they can't do the machines. Okay. The other thing with the rice I'm using this time is that it, in Japanese at least, it only really stands for uncooked rice, the actual rice plant. There's another character for rice, which I believe is the same in Japanese and Chinese, but I decided it was rather too complicated and I wanted to have at least a few characters that weren't all that complicated. Well, is meat. And meat is like a piece of steak with lines of fat and sinew going through it. And as a nearly vegetarian, a non-meat eater, I found this extremely useful in Japan because I could look on a bit of packaging and see not only whether or not it contained cow, beef or pork or whatever. I could also just see the word meat, and quite often food in Japan has meat extract. I'm not quite sure why they feel this is necessary, but more often than not there will be meat extract in your noodles, so it's worth being able to recognise. The only thing to watch out for is fruit as well. Sometimes we'll say fruit meat because that means the flesh of the fruit, so sometimes you might be avoiding something for no reason. And finally, the last one of these 5 is egg. Now, to me this looks really obviously like an egg. It's got 2 parts that are broken up and something's coming out. But I read an explanation somewhere that suggested that it was something to do with snake's eggs, and I'm really not quite sure why. But to me, it looks very much like an egg. This is the one character where my Chinese students have said, yes, we can read that as egg, but there's another character we would normally use more often for egg. All the other characters they've accepted fairly happily are what I say they are. But this is the only one where they say there is a better way. I think my baby needs me, so thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mummy.